Hi everyone, welcome back to the Celts Are Here Flagship podcast. It's myself, Declan McConville, joined by Quinny. As always, we've not been on for a wee while, Quinny. We've not been on since the Derby victory. We were on right after that one. It's been a wee bit of lull, just as it has been with Celtic games because of the fixture postponements. But back in action last night, a point away from home in the Champions League. That's never a bad thing. But I
Never.
think we walk away from the game feeling a wee bit disappointed, don't we?
Yeah, I think everyone's of the consensus that it's 2 points dropped versus a point gained. With the way we played, expectation was always building, and I make you right. Like it was weird not having the Livingston game at the weekend because coming into this game, like I think we were all a little bit blindfolded to, how does the manager see the progression in the team from the Real Madrid match? We didn't have any kind of tells or any opportunity to see what he was thinking or what any progression would be. Haksabanovic starting obviously being the wild card of the night, but yeah, no, it was all quite mad last week as well after Real Madrid because of as soon as that result, and then it was the games go ahead, and there was no games going ahead, and yeah, so I think it's only a matter of maybe like 8 days or something, but it does feel like much longer since we've been preparing for a weekend game.
Yeah, it sure does. I think that's a really good point. And using the term blindfolded, I kind of described it as dusting the cobwebs off. That game to just back in domestic
Yeah,
action. We know Celtic have been flying in the league at this point in time. You want to kind of carry that momentum through. And we didn't get that opportunity, obviously, to do that at the weekend. And the weekend might have been an opportunity to play the likes of Haksabanovic and maybe get a wee bit more minutes into his legs before you throw him into this one. We'll go to him first. You said before the game on Twitter to me in a tweet that you thought a wild card was coming. It did come in the form of Sead Haksabanovic. Started off the game well, but I thought he dropped off a bit, and he looked kind of like a player who hadn't played a lot of football recently.
the first 5 to 10 minutes, it was breathtaking. Like it was very noticeable on the game, and it was interesting because he started, him and Jota changed wings once or twice in the first kind of 10 minutes.
Almost immediately as well in the first kind of 2 minutes. They changed things rapidly.
So I think because I was thinking like in the preview to the game, like their left back. I don't know if you probably anyone who watched the game maybe clocked him, the Scottish looking guy who was giving away all the fouls. He was from the first game against Leipzig. He got booked and he made the most fouls. So I was kind of expecting maybe we will try and target him. And when Jota started on the right for that first minute, I was like, oh,
Is
it
that
seems so obvious.
Canoplia? Is it his
Yeah,
name?
that one.
Canoplia?
Yeah, he's got a bit of Iron Brew in his blood. If you remember how he's got that
That's right,
skin.
the ginger boy, that's right. I know what you're talking about. Bit of
But
kind of Ben Watson look about him. Remember Ben Watson?
yeah, exactly.
A
That
bit
kind of
like
vibe
him.
for sure. But we did target him, and when Jota started on the right, I thought, oh, it was so obvious. Of course, we were going to play Jota on the right against that guy, and then Haksabanovic, like at first, the first minute or two on that left hand side, he was kind of, he was giving the team the same outlet that Jota gives, coming in on the right foot. And then when they did swap again, like it just caused them all sorts of bother. But I did feel, and I think again everyone's on the same page with Haksabanovic, that first like 10, 15 minutes, he looked really impressive, and then he was just absent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, as I say, had you had the fixture against Livingston gone ahead, you might get 60, 70 minutes under his belt, which would have probably prepared them a bit better for the game. There was a lot before it, Quinny, people saying, going into it, Celtic's get a week to prepare for this. They'll be well prepped. But I think for any football player, especially at this point in the season when we're only, midway through September, they want game time. And I think a lot of them will have been disappointed not to get that game time at the weekend. Would you agree with that? That players probably want to play more rather than they would have the week off like they did have?
Big time. Like, because the manager and the management team's like plan with Haksabanovic might just be quite simply from before the game at the weekend get called off. We need this guy to clock in 70 minutes over the next 3 games. And then all of a sudden the Livingston game's gone. And, obviously they rate him to the extent if this is the plan. He gets his 45, obviously last night. Maybe we'll see him come from the bench and get 20 or 30 again at the weekend.
Yeah, but we'll come on to the weekend's game against St Mirren. It's going to be another tough game. Obviously, Celtic's been very, very good in the road this season so far. But back onto last night, I thought he was probably one of the better players for Celtic in those opening stages. The thing that impressed me, again, Quinny, from the start up until the goal was our press. Our press was really, really aggressive early on in the game. that's just really, really difficult for any team, I think, in world football to cope with. And we can say that now because we saw how Real Madrid dealt with it last week. We went in with that same aggression, but when you do press so aggressively, there's no absolutely no chance you're going to be able to keep that up for 90 minutes. And you did see it drop off um, midway through that first half.
Yeah. And again, like, the manager kind of prepares for us to have like stages of the game where even though the mantra is we never stop and we keep going or whatever, it is just biology. People need recovery time at some point in the match. And I think we coped really well when we did have those lulls in the match where we did struggle to retain the ball. Their goal comes from an absolute, freak occurrence. It's a very it's one of those goals that, McGregor goes to try and intercept the pass, he fluffs it, and then, we're a man down in recovery, and that's basically where they get their goal. And that boy Mudryk, like, was very impressive in it. But other than that, I didn't see us in any danger when we were, like, really having to get a breather and reshape.
Yeah, we'll come to that Madrid goal a wee bit further on, but in terms of going 1-0 up in the game, it was coming, and Celtic deserved to take the lead in that game. But we're not saying that at all with green tinted specs. If you sat down a football and tried to watch that, they would have said Celtic deserved an early goal, and it did come. I'm not having it that Juranovic meant that pass. Or do you think he meant that ball up the park? I just looked as if it was a big hoof, and it picked him out perfectly.
I think it's one of those ones where he's went to clear it knowing he's going to send the ball in that direction, kind of thing. I don't think he's seen him out there and went, oh, I'm just going to drop it on his toe, like kind of thing. So it's maybe a happy accident, that pass.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. But then Haksabanovic, who I know we've just touched on it, brilliantly weighted ball. I'm putting it down as Rio Hitate's goal. I know it's been down as an OG, but his run to get to the ball is, exemplary. He really, 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 he's aggressive to get to the ball. It's a real intent in the run to say that's my ball and I'm going to put this into the back of the net.
Yeah, in that period of the match, like, we seen proper full Rio. I think, like, there was spells of the match where he was nipping about every blade of grass, he was getting every touch of the ball, he was getting into the final 18 yards, the final 20 yards, and making things happen. And we maybe haven't seen enough of that, like, final third element of Rio consistently enough over the season so far. So it was great to see, like, from the beginning, he was like getting in the box, he was trying to link up play, and obviously the OG come attempted assist or whatever it might be, was what were probably one of the better chances, or probably the best chance we'd created in that point.
Yeah, it was, and it wasn't an easy finish, but certainly, the bodies in the box and getting to the ball, um, to put the ball in the back of the net was, it was a great run and really intent. I mean, when you've got guys around you doing that, I think it just lifts the team. When you've got, players who are with intent to go and get you that goal, it just lifts you. And again, Celtic were really, really unlucky not to double the lead. I'm thinking about that one that goes across the goal line, and Kyogo's just inches away if he put that into the net. But we get caught on the break. I call it the Celtic sucker punch in Europe. We've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
And it was something that I'm sure Celtic had worked on with Shakhtar Donetsk, because it was something that they did very well the week previous against RB Leipzig, and this man had did the week previous. I'd actually written an article on the website about Mudryk before the game, saying that it was the danger man. And when he scored, I thought, well, I jinxed that one, didn't I? Because we knew his quality. Juranovic got absolutely nowhere near him. But as you say, but when McGregor fluffs his lines in the middle of the park, you're a man down, and I don't think there's much Joe Hart can do about it either. He smashes the ball at the roof of the net. It's a good finish, but that was really the only chance Shakhtar properly created in the game. I know they had another shot in target, but that's the only one I can really remember.
Yeah, their chances were very few and very far between. The Taylor cross for Kyogo, I think, is probably the chance that if we take that, the game is completely sliding doors, butterfly effect and all that stuff. It's a totally different match at that point, because we were in the ascendancy, we were kicking on, and that goal, like, we did recover, we did recover from it quite quickly. But I think we had, having the cushion of it being one each at half time, it gave us a real springboard to try and attack the second half. And, like we're just kind of talking about, like, when we came out the second half with that kind of same intent as the first half, was really impressive and really quite pleasing. The halftime sub maybe injected a wee bit of fortune into that. But like Shakhtar in all stages of the game had the same plan, and it was get the ball out the crowd and switch it within one or two passes to the opposite wide man and run, And I think we did a good job for 90 minutes of containing that.
Yeah, but we'll come on to talk about Shakhtar because, I think if you are possibly a Shakhtar Donetsk fan, I don't know how you would feel about that type of performance. But we will come on to talk about them because obviously we're still to play them at Celtic Park. But
Yep.
one of the things, Quinny, I think that impressed me in the early stages, even before that goal, was the way that we moved the ball around. We can talk about this high press and how we play out of possession, but in possession we looked very, very comfortable, which is good to see Celtic at this level looking like that. The passes were crisp, we were moving it about well, and we were building from the back, which is something that we know Ange Postecoglou likes to do. Yeah, Shakhtar, their press was practically non-existent, but I was really impressed in the early stages with the way that we moved the ball about and created stuff.
Yeah, I know we were very effective in doing that. One of the things I enjoyed about like when we seen those periods of Celtic, like we were the big team in the match. We were the Real
Absolutely,
Madrid, kind of
absolutely.
idea. Normally when we play Shakhtar, Benfica, it's like we're contemporaries, we're on their level. But that
Hmm.
match, like my favorite bits of some of the game, like just in terms of being a fan and watching it, is like when it went to the Shakhtar dugout and you seen how frantically the manager and the assistant manager, they're like, it was like Neil Lennon against Barca. That was the kind of vibes I was getting from them. This is like, oh my god, we're drawing. Let's do this, and they're all the way through the game. And we are not normally cast in that role in the Champions League group stage. So
The Shakhtar manager described the game as the biggest game in 20 years for the football club, and he felt his knees at the end of the game pointing to the skies, which I think tells you everything you
yeah,
probably need to know. I think the director of UEFA or whatever cameras it was seemed to have a liking to what looked a bit like a kind of poom shop Jurgen Klopp, didn't it? When it kept
yeah,
panning
with the
on
hat and all that.
panning on Igor. I can't mind his second name. But yeah, no, absolutely. He looked like a yeah, absolutely. It looked as if the shoe was another foot last night. I would totally agree with that one. We did weather the storm after the goal, which is good to see. My heart was in my mouth when Marion Shved, who I thought he's
Yes.
came back to bite us here, put the ball in the back of the net. Obviously, first it's an offside and the ball is out of play. It's spotted for the offside, but I thought, don't tell me this is the same old Celtic in Europe here because we do have this tendency, Quinny, something that Ange Postecoglou spoke about after the Madrid game, that when we concede in European football, we concede almost instantly after it.
Yeah, that's it. And it's happened so much, like even in like Ange's time, think about the Europa League last year, it was like punch for punch in these matches. We would get ahead or we would get a good foothold in the match and then goals would go against us and the momentum of the game quickly turns. But I think in that respect, like, all we were missing to kind of shake that hoodoo. Like I was listening to some other Celtic media over the week and they were talking about the Spartak victory, when Gary Hooper and all that scored and we got the victory away in Moscow. And it felt like when we got that victory, it was a real monkey off the back because it was the first time, I think, in like 10 years we'd got a
Yeah.
point on the road. And I think, like last night, if we got another goal, we would have
Three
probably got.
points. 3 points in the road that game. 3-2 victory.
No, exactly. Yeah. But I think in the immediate right up to that, we'd got like zero. I don't think we were
Okay.
drawn for a while.
Celtic's record, though, which is something I think is going to be a kind of bigger monkey off the back, is in 22 of the last away games in the Champions League, we've only won two. It's Spartak Moscow and Anderlecht is the other one,
Yeah.
which, you know, isn't a, it's not an Ange Postecoglou fault, and that's when
I
you
know.
maybe start to think, it's a brand new team, but is it is just as if there's a Celtic problem, if you know what I mean by that. I talk about that sucker punch. It's almost as if the same characteristics exist within games, no matter who's in charge, which is something we just want to see put an end to.
Yeah. Well, I think, in terms like the sucker punch thing is there, unfortunately, from that game. And I watched the Real Madrid Leipzig match as well afterwards. I don't know if you managed to catch that, but
I watched an Italian team play last night. They were very good. They won 3-0. The Italian team I watched, they were fairly decent.
I had two tellies on. So
I did. I did catch it. I watched the highlights of Leipzig and I saw the chance very early on. I don't know how the hell it stayed out the net. The one that right across the face a goal.
yeah. But like Leipzig against Real Madrid, it was a very similar match to us against Real Madrid in a lot of ways. And the real difference in that match in terms of like how it went versus how it went against us is, the goals, those it took longer for Real Madrid themselves into the game. With the Valverde goal, it was an absolute whipper. If you've not seen that one yet, I
I
recommend you
saw
check
it.
it
And
out.
by the way, that's two great performances from him in the Champions League. He was excellent last week.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. So I think that's an element of the Ange team that if we can shake that off in one of the games against Leipzig, ideally the next one that's coming up, then I think that would be really good. But one symptom I think this team is guilty of, and I think we've seen it. I think we've all seen it domestically, but it really frustrated me more than anything last night. And it's because we know the manager's going to make subs at 60 odd minutes, and we know it's going to be O'Reilly for Turnbull and Rio for this one and all that stuff. I'm noticing, from like the 52nd minute onwards, 50th minute onwards, a lot of these guys that know they're getting subbed are just going for glory, when, they're shooting far too often. They're not taking the team chances enough. They're trying to go themselves. And last night, like, I put a tweet out after watching Bayern Barca talking about Pedri not stepping up, even though he played pretty well. And I say the same thing about Jota. Like, Jota did great, right? Don't get me wrong. But he needs to win us that match if he wants to be Jota, King of Celtic, big wonder kid guy is going to go for 40 million or whatever. And you seen the look on his face when he was on the bench. He was also really gutted. And
yeah, he looked raging.
yeah,
Don't know how we get man of the match, by the way, either.
Well, statistically, he was amazing. He put lots of balls into the box. He completed lots of dribbles. He was fantastic, on his actual output on the match. But I would make O'Reilly guilty of the same thing to an extent as well. And, at that level, suffering a sucker punch, that is what it is. But when we then get opportunities, there's no room for, like Jota's one where he beats 3 men. He only needs to beat 2 and lay on Kyogo or take the shot at that point. Takes too many touches, takes on the third man, and the chance is gone. And there was another 1 or 2 before he went off,
Yeah, that's actually quite I think a good way of explaining that. I mean, that's a Barcelona team you're talking about. People would start, oh, don't compare Celtic and Barcelona. But again, Pedri, much like Jota, at this level, he's not played, too much Champions League football. He's had a fair good crack at Champions League football. But the other night, much like probably Celtic Real Madrid, you could say, although both teams with millions of riches on the park, it was the experience of Bayern Munich that shone through the other night from what I watched of it.
Yeah.
Quinny, and even in the highlights, I mean, you see even an experienced striker like Robert Lewandowski missing chances. He is human, but yeah, I noticed that with Pedri. I think Fatty had one of the chances in the game too, and it was as if they're just going for glory rather than maybe setting up Lewandowski for an easier effort. So yeah, I think that's something that players themselves probably need to reflect on a wee bit in terms of what you're saying there. Just that, as a team, as a collective, that we go and win together, and it's not about one player. But
like, it's fine doing that when we're beating like Ross County 4-0 or something, and you get subbed off in 2 minutes. Shoot from 30 yards, I don't care, but it's one each away to Shakhtar. Like, it's get us in front, that's the main thing. So I think he played well, and when I say didn't step up, when I'm talking about Pedri or Jota, it's not like a criticism, but it's just like, like there's another level there that they can get to.
And when he's got that level of football, and he maybe doesn't get a goal that he probably did deserve last night, just with some of those mazy dribbles, it is frustrating. But hopefully the goals do come. We will come to that, because I know that's something that Ange Postecoglou wanted to speak about after the game. We were talking there about weathering the storm and that Marion Shved incident, but thankfully we didn't concede instantly. I know the ball was in the back of the net, it was chopped off, and we didn't do that typical Celtic thing of going two goals down. We weathered the storm, got to half time. I thought it was any team's game to win by half time, just due to the way that kind of Shakhtar had closed that second half off. The last 5 minutes Celtic took control back, but the second half, completely different. Celtic in utter control, and Shakhtar, I thought, were very, very poor, Quinny. They didn't have a lot of creative output. They just seemed to want to sit in and soak up the pressure.
Yeah, and like they're kind of, Shakhtar over the last 2 or 3 seasons in Champions League, like you kind of threw the kind of question into the ether earlier, like how would Shakhtar kind of look at that result? Like, Shakhtar made a lot of headlines last season and the season before for like really like performances just like they gave us, but in the Bernabeu against Real Madrid and in the San Siro against Inter Milan. And the boy Trubin, who I thought played pretty well for them last night, he's this is his, for example, this is his like 3rd European campaign. He's like a 20-year-old goalkeeper, and he looked a bit more experienced, if that makes sense. But I think they will actually be quite happy with the performance throughout the game.
Yeah, well, the manager, in his comments today, was talking about dealing with that high press that is difficult to play against, and they did play through it, getting back into the game, because very difficult when a team's in such control to pull yourself back into the game, and they did. And again, it's a reflection of this level, Quinny, that when you're presented with a big opportunity, you need to take it, and they did take it with that opportunity that Mudryk got to pull them back into the game. If maybe that ball doesn't go in the net and they continue to play like they were, there was absolutely no chance they were pulling themselves back into the game unless they got a penalty or something.
Exactly. Like the only pace they really had in their team was Mudryk and Shved. The guys in the middle were all basically. I felt like the rest of the team are centre backs. And when you've not got somebody like,
Zubkov,
yeah,
didn't think Zubkov did very much either in
he
terms
was.
of pace and whatnot.
No, he was basically like a training dummy. He was just there to occupy centre backs. I don't think he actually had any touches of the ball. Zubkov. But but when you've not got somebody like a Kalmacher or Rio, or think about Madrid, somebody like a Modric, if you've not got somebody that can carry the ball 20 yards, then it makes it really difficult to get out of a defensive situation without just shelling it. So I think their expectations were to play like that, and I think they've played 2 games and got 4 points, man. I think Shakhtar are on the moon right now.
Yeah, well, they will be in the moon, and let's talk a wee bit about Shakhtar Donetsk. I know this is a Celtic podcast, but we are going to have to play them at Celtic Park. I think it's important that we have a look at the opposition in this group because it's going to decide their fate with European football after Christmas. Shakhtar, I think they couldn't have probably played RB Leipzig at a better time than they did in match day one, and it was a real smash and grab job. Marian Shved presented with an absolute gift of a first goal. They get that deflection for the second goal. Leipzig were probably the better team, even up until that second goal, which is a bit of a sucker punch that we're talking about there to Leipzig. And then Leipzig completely fell apart, and it obviously has meant that Tedesco's lost his job. They've brought in Marco Rose. They're a very different side, but we'll touch on Leipzig afterwards. But Shakhtar, I think, in terms of Champions League opposition that Celtic's played, and those 22 past games away from home, I would say are probably right up there. But with Anderlecht is probably one of the poorer oppositions that we've faced.
Yeah, for sure. And like we've played Shakhtar like in the past, like so us as fans kind of know that they're definitely not like a little minnow club or whatever. But like we said in the build up to this, they're firmly a Ukrainian Premier League club at this point. They're not a Eastern European country with riches and bringing in talent from all over the world like they used to. Obviously, the infrastructure that they've had over the last 20 years has allowed them to have a decent academy where they can bring through guys like Mudryk, and I'm pretty sure the whole team's homegrown. I know Trubin's come out of their academy, the goalkeeper. But it's definitely, I think, like we said at the top of the pod, like the consensus is 2 points dropped on this one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously, Shakhtar, due to the situation which has existed in Ukraine for all this year, are displaced from their stadium. A lot of the Brazilian players that they had in their team have obviously left the club. I think last night was 10 Ukrainians and 1 Brazilian in their team, which is a reflection of where they are in terms of what you're saying there, Quinny, about being a firmly established Ukrainian Premiership side. But I think they will be the happier of the teams. And one thing I want to throw over to you now is they've obviously still to play Real Madrid back to back. That they're going to have to go to. They're going to have to host Leipzig in Warsaw, and then they need to come to Celtic Park. Can you see Shakhtar picking up too many more points in this group? Realistically,
No, I don't think so. But
I
like I
don't think
said,
so. From what I saw last night,
no, I don't think so either. But I think against Real Madrid, they're probably on for like a couple of low scoring ties, because of the way both teams play. Real Madrid aren't a team that necessarily demands possession. They're more comfortable in that role of we'll take the ball off you, make a couple of passes, and go and Real Madrid it.
Certainly like that last night again. Up until
Yeah.
80 minutes.
Exactly. So I think when the game, if the game stays low scoring long enough, then Shakhtar could always nick something. It's the Champions League, but I don't. Looking at the run coming to our place, having Leipzig will be out for revenge. They'll need the points back from them. I think it's an uphill struggle for them, but 4 points. I say right now they'll be rubbing their hands and
Yeah, no,
praying.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think probably their objective will be Europa League football after Christmas. They're probably looking towards,
Yeah.
and anything beyond that is probably a dream if they were to get to the last 16 of the Champions League. But we'll see. Football can be a strange game. I don't think anybody could have predicted Bruges going to Porto and winning 4-0 the other night. So there's been a few strange results. Benfica also got a great result last night too. So, but we'll just see how things go. But let's just briefly, we've spoken about Shakhtar. Obviously, they're still to come to Celtic Park. That's going to be a really important game that I think we're going to need to look at, Quinny, as we need to take 3 points from it if we really are serious about getting second in the group. And realistically, it's one that you need to look at. You looked at when a draw happened, that you need to win to get European football after Christmas. Full stop.
Yeah, I think that when everyone's forecasted how many points Celtic could get, everyone forecasts 3 points at home at Shakhtar at the beginning. And I think maybe the doomsdayists amongst us might have said a loss or a draw on all the away games or whatever. So to even get the point in maybe some people's eyes, it is a, I think everyone before the game, like, we want 1/0, so it's definitely better than that. But yeah, I think when you're laying the group out at the beginning, for us, that game now has even more importance on it, because we've been banking on the 3 points already. So we need to make sure we grab them.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of just that kind of reflection of looking at the group at this point in time, it's one that you're looking at, that if we beat Shakhtar at Celtic Park and have similar results, that we possibly nick a point in Germany and hopefully beat RB Leipzig at Celtic Park, you're hoping by that point that those 8 points and whatever happens in the Bernabeu will be enough, possibly, to just get us through.
Yeah, I think the thing about the Bernabeu, I can't remember if it was me and you chatting about this, but as far as like away games go, it's not really a feared stadium. It's not like like the Nou Camp or the Allianz Arena, or even like Old Trafford
Parc
and
des
Anfield.
Princes. Yeah.
Yeah, these types of places where you're like, oh crap, that's a horrible away fixture. And like the Bernabeu, like, it's under reconstruction as well, so it's not even as if it's at capacity and whatever. So as far as like away games go, this group isn't really that awful. We've been away to Leipzig before. Leipzig get a good following, the stadium fills up and stuff, but again, it's not Celtic Park, it's not San Siro.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks as if big Larimer is going to be out for this game
Yeah.
coming up too. I read that this morning from Derek Ray, which is going to be a big miss for him, because part of the team at the weekend that they beat Borussia Dortmund 3-0, I think he came off towards the end of his game, towards the end of the game. And that is going to be a bit of a miss for him. He's saying he could be out for up to 6 weeks, Quinny.
Yeah, that's a sore one for Leipzig. And Limer's one of these guys that everything kind of, he's like their kind of McGregor, Rio Tate type guy, they'll do all that stuff. But the thing with Leipzig we need to be concerned about is that they have very easily the quickest midfield in this group, and the time and space we were afforded by Shakhtar and Real Madrid won't happen against Leipzig. It'll be a very different football match. And as much as like Leipzig aren't pulling up trees at the moment, every game that they still play the same way, and they've just not had the rub of the green. They've just not had things clicking. And it'll be one of those games where like everyone's focus and attention needs to be 1,000,000% for every second of the game, because
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been something that even the players have been saying themselves about focus in these games.
Because like like Shakhtar, we did pretty well with it. Real Madrid, we did, I'd say, pass marks against Real Madrid in terms of the performance, switching on. I don't think we made any like real criminal mistakes in the game as such, But Leipzig are one of those, the way all that Red Bull football and everything works, it's so rehearsed and so repeatable, and it doesn't matter who you're playing against. The great thing about it is we will actually have all the same goal scoring opportunities, if not more, than what Shakhtar had, because equally, when they're going to try and come in and attack at us, the thing about that Red Bull football in particular, when that forward press is on, what they'll do a bit more than us is they'll throw midfielders into the box. Like if you think about Shakhtar last night, when they've got Trubin and then the centre back split and they're trying to get out of their defensive, we'll have O'Reilly joining the front three, right? But they'll throw two mids in there to go and press, because they'll really try and get it one back in that final third. And if they give us that space, we can play through that if we're switched on enough.
And on the break. And on the break, we can hit through them.
We've got more talent than Shakhtar on the break, so we've definitely got goals in us in this match, but it's potentially one of those European games where the style of football, if we don't address it, like in terms of the players man for man, sticking with your roles and all the rest of it, then they will just slice you open. They'll be quite unforgiving.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all about everything we talk about at this level, about taking your chances and being focused. You're going to give up opportunities. I think that's just natural at Champions League level, but it's about how you deal when you do give up with the opportunities, and something to entertain us this morning, Quinny, and we like to entertain our listeners, is looking back at the Celtic team that last played against RB Leipzig over in Germany. I was one of the unfortunate souls that was at the game, and the Celtic team that night, that fateful night, was Craig Gordon in goals, a back four of Christian Gamboa, remember him?
Yep.
Costa Rican fullback. Jozo Simonovic, Dedrick Boyata, and Kieran Tierney made up the defence. A midfield of Callum McGregor, Ibui Kouassi, Olivier Ncham, and Ryan Christie. That was just when Christie was coming back into the team, if you remember. And up top, Odsonne Edouard and Lewis Morgan. Very different Celtic teams going to be going to Leipzig this time.
I would never have guessed the Bowie played that match.
Yep.
Like wow. I only remember the Bowie getting like 3 minutes against Kilmarnock or something one time. Like that's incredible. But
Celtic bench: Azagiri, Hendry, Sinclair, Hayes, Lustig, Bain, Benkovic.
mental. I was at the home game with it. What was it? Did we beat them? I know Tierney scored. I
Two
remember.
one, 2-1. Edwards got the winner.
And Edward scored right after they equalised. We did
That's
it
right.
to
Yep.
them. Yeah.
We
That's
did
a
the
great.
sucker punch to them.
That was I think that was my first night in with the disco lights on, because in the group stages beforehand, it was a wee bit lighter. That was towards the end of the group when we were getting into winter, That was a great night, actually. I loved
Yeah,
that
well,
one.
that was a one of probably the better Celtic victories at home in terms of the opposition in recent years. But yeah, it's going to be very different when we go over there and face them. I can't help but think, Quinny, after last night, and I think really the problem has been that Shakhtar getting that 4-1 victory and match day one, having those 4 points in the board was frustrating. It would have been even more frustrating last night had Leipzig taken something in the Bernabeu. But at this point in time, you're on a point, you're on the board, and it's just about looking towards these back-to-back games and thinking probably now that there's no more room for probably error, and that these two games against Leipzig will likely decide our fate going forward to European football.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think the head-to-head against Leipzig was always going to be the one that if we're going to finish second, that's how you do it. And now at this point, with Shakhtar getting points against Leipzig, like we need to get points from Leipzig or we're behind the eight ball when it comes to Shakhtar. But one thing I was thinking, I've not checked this out, right, but I'm 99% sure this is the case, right? That night when we beat them at Parkhead, they played a
Leipzig,
back
this is.
Leipzig, yeah. They played a back four, right? Three of the back four, I'm quite confident on this, was Mukiele, now at Paris Saint-Germain, Upamecano, who's now at Bayern Munich, and Konate, now at Liverpool.
Yeah, it's
So we
probably
beat
right.
that. We beat that Leipzig team, and I think the rest of the team. I think that was even a rotated team at that point. So it was a few years ago, was when those guys were kind of breaking through. But if we can beat Upamecano, Konate, and Mukiele Parkhead, then the back four they've got the now is not the same.
Yeah, bring it on. Certainly bring it on. Let's go back to last night. Obviously, you've spoken about the number of subs that came on. Firstly, Dyson Maeda. What was your thoughts? Because I think some people are starting to now, turn on him a wee bit again because it's been two chances. He's got caught under the ball last week. I think he's just unlucky last night, especially the acrobatic effort. I mean, it's really
Yeah,
unlucky. Two chances last night. Obviously, the one that he's sliding into. I think it's harsh for folk to start criticising him at this point because it's not just Dyson Maeda that's missing chances at this level. As a collective, we're doing it.
yeah. I think the thing with Maeda, right, is it's quite obvious that he's like, let's just say he's more in the Kenny Miller kind of vibe of what type of
I
finisher he
would
is.
call him a team player as well. I don't think he's going to be your man that you're probably looking to get you out of jail and come up with the goods in a game
Yeah,
at all. I know I've seen him score goals for his Quinny, but I just don't think he's the guy that you probably look to if you're needing a wee bit of a moment of magic. It's a Jota, a Kyogo, or even Giacomakis.
yeah. I don't think he's a clinical, like, born to bred. Now, don't get me wrong, as I finish this sentence, I'll remind myself he was the top goal scorer in the J League once we took Kyogo out of the equation, so he can find the back of the net, and he has done for us, like you said. But I think he is the most, he's got the biggest crutch of all the forwards, that he needs minutes, he needs reps, he needs to be in the game, so that, like, if you think about the two chances that he's missed, right? In the lead up to that, he was out the team. But prior to him being out the team, when he played like 3 games concurrently and he was getting like goals and assists or whatever, he comes out the team. And then when he does come off the bench, he's just not as effective. I believe, and this is just in my head, if he was never dropped, I think these goals happen. I think if he's playing from the
Yeah, so
start in all these
it's a
games.
possibility. I actually said that with the chance against Real Madrid last week. That
Yeah.
it was a sub that I wanted to come on last night. I certainly thought that Haksabanovic should have came off, whether it was for Dyson or Liela Bada. But yeah, it's a possibility. I think he is a person that thrives off minutes and he is one of those players that does that. But probably for him, Quinny, he'd probably rather be the guy that's putting those chances in a plate rather than being the guy at the end of them, isn't he?
Yeah, big time. And you've seen that as well. Like there was a few like Giacomakis. Like I feel so bad for him because like I've seen so many times. Like last night was a great example of it. So many times where Giacomakis and Kyogo suffers from this in spells of the match as well. They make fantastic runs, and they would be like the pass should be to them, but then, maybe we're coming from inside left with, let's say, Rio Hatate, rather than sliding it into, Kyogo or Giakoumakis, they play it over to like O'Reilly or Turnbull, and then look for them to either play the overlap right back or them to play the striker. Whereas sometimes it's just them. You see the run, you see the guy, you're positioned well enough, play him in now and give him the shot, because so many times I see Giakoumakis and Kyogo, they won't throw their arms in the air, but you can see their body language when it goes out for a corner. Like, I should have had a shot there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that one. Obviously, that was the subs that followed Dyson Maeda coming on, but was David Turnbull, Giakoumakis, and Aaron Moy as a kind of triple sub. Um,
But
again, I think if that chance falls to Giakoumakis towards the end of last season, it bursts in eight. But
yeah,
I think he's another player. Even though he knows there's rotation going to happen between him and Kyogo, that when he's in that rhythm of a run of games, he knows where the net is. But I don't know. I thought last season, Quinny, when he was still building up minutes, he was good at coming on in European games to see them out. Giakoumakis, with his physicality and his
yeah,
body, he gets you up the park. Whereas as a penalty box striker, we know he can find the net, but in those moments and situations, I think he needs to be on form. Just from what I've watched of the big man, is
yeah.
that just me being cynical? Is that as a fan, or do you see that?
No, I'm quite on that as well, because like everything about Giakoumakis' game last night, with the, let's say, two chances he had, if you want to include the header right at the end, with the goalkeeper in the air, they by all accounts are like, goals. He's just, I think the shot, like, at first I thought he absolutely skied it, but when you see the replay, like, he is
It's
very unlucky.
inches. It's a lick of
Yeah.
paint away.
And then the header, that's just bad fortune that they've had somebody running back to the goal line as quick as they've had. So I think he's just needing a wee bit of luck to go his way, more than anything. The kind of point I was making earlier, sorry, I just wanted to, I don't think I said it properly, but like Maeda is so unselfish. Like you were kind of saying, he would rather set some of these people up. So I think in some of these situations, somebody like Maeda, even though he may not always be the goal scorer, will probably help the team function a bit better. I think him at halftime and then the other subs like Giakoumakis, I think is in some respects the opposite to Maeda. I think if Giakoumakis plays every game and gets some sort of minutes, I think you'll always get the same kind of performance out of him for 30 minutes or for 60. Whereas Maeda, I don't think you get a good. I don't think you don't get me wrong. Like, he ran his socks off and he did well last night, but like, if he's going to play 20, 30 minutes every game, I don't think you're going to get over 10 goals a season out of him.
No, I don't think you're going to get the best out of him doing that at all either. I
Yeah,
totally agree with that. And I've always found that Abad as an impactful player, whether you start him or bring him off the bench, he's got that to his game that no matter whether he starts or come off, he'll always impact a game. Whereas I think you're correct in saying that Daisy Maeda is probably a guy who, to be at his very best, probably needs to start the game of football. But what do we know? We're only fans, and sees him in training. He's picking the team, and that's it. And it's you know but we're not sitting here in the end of a European defeat, which is a good thing.
yeah,
Although we're saying it feels like 2 points dropped, it's only going to feel like that come the end of the group stage campaign. If we're maybe not at second place, and we think we should have got to second place, this could be a point gained by the come November time. So we won't get into that mindset too much just now. David Turnbull, he came on, he had chances and whatever else. He didn't really stand out for me. I thought Aaron Moy was another impressive cameo. He's very,
yeah,
very calm in those moments. And I think when we spoke earlier on about Celtic weathering the storm a bit in the game, that's the kind of guy that you would actually like your team at those moments of the game, because he'll always just pick out a pass and he'll keep it simple. And it's going to be interesting. I know the guys from the Cynic asked the manager about Abelgard and possibly looking at a double
yeah.
pivot
I've got
in
that
the
question.
Champions League. Whether that's something that we maybe see creep into Celtic's team latterly in the group stages. What's your thoughts on that one?
I would say first of all, I think we're actually there now. Like, see, for the last like 3 games, like O'Reilly has basically been a forward and out the ball. Like, it is Rio and McGregor doing that double. I think we're there now. I think we're almost. I think the last couple of games we've basically seen that. But I think Moy for me has been so impressive over the last couple of games when he has come on. Like, see the passes that he plays and completes. No one else in the team has that at all. Like the passes he's making in the second half. Like McGregor, maybe he can make them, but he never makes them. McGregor wants to move the ball 5 to 10 yards, and not in that's not a criticism, because the way he does it, it's like, moving the team on and whatever. But Moy will do those passes, and then if he sees the diagonals on or we're under pressure and he sees a break he can launch, he'll do it. It was so powerful to keep us pushing for goals in the second half, because
Great,
without that,
great ball into the box at the end of the game for Giakoumakis. Actually, would have liked Celtic to have did that a wee bit more. I know it's not really the way that we play football is firing, balls up to the striker, but I actually thought Leipzig, when we were putting high balls into the box, looked a bit, as if taken aback by it, because they were on the back foot enough in the game, Quinny, that danger balls getting into the box, and you get a guy like Giakoumakis in there. Teams don't want that in later
yeah.
stages of a game, do they?
So who would you think, like, let's say Moy's done enough to start in the manager's eyes, who would he start over for you?
But this is the issue, because I like the balance. After we beat Rangers 3-0 in February, and he played that midfield three that he's persistent with just now, I like it. It's got runners in it. It showed that against quality opposition, against Real Madrid, it could function. So there's no issue with it. It's just maybe at stages in the game which maybe Angel think he'd like to have, two guys drop deep in front of the defence and then try and penetrate forward, when we've got the ball. Um, so at this point in time, I don't see any of them coming out the team, and I certainly,
Impossible, eh?
I think it's hard to use the word dropping somebody behind Postecoglou, because he doesn't do it, he rotates. But you know, it's probably Rio Hatate, because we just don't see him as a natural number 10, which
Sure.
says a lot about the competition in that Celtic midfield just now. Um, but I wouldn't be taking Rio Hatate out the Celtic team just now, because you see what he gives you last night,
Yeah.
and we know his quality. So at this point in time, I persist with the same midfield that we're playing. But whether we do look to maybe at one point try out that double pivot, if you will, double six, whatever. Maybe Leipzig away could be the very game to do it, because Abelgard's not come into the Celtic team to sit on the bench. By no means there is a plan for him in place to be at Celtic. We didn't just take him in that. I think it is a loan deal. It's a bit kind of
Yeah.
murky waters with the actual deal that we've got him on. But would you agree that he's certainly there to play a part? And throwing it back to you, would you agree with me that the midfield three just now, don't like using the term undroppable, but it probably is undroppable just with the quality that you've got in there and what it's shown it can do?
Yeah, I think that's the case. That's why I get, because I look at Moy and I'm like, this guy needs to start, but I can't see how. I don't understand how you get this guy into the team. And Abelgard just makes it even harder. Like, a good friend of mine I was chatting to was saying that Abelgard's got a good enough profile. He could maybe be a left-footed centre back. That might be something that might happen. I don't really see it, to be honest with you, but there is a plan, like you say. And if Moy can't get into this team, then I don't know where Abelgard comes into it either. So I'm just kind of scratching around thinking about how would you do that, because it's so packed.
But would you agree though that Oliver Abelgard's just not there to make up the numbers?
Oh no, of course not. I think the standard of the whole team, like they're all like you mentioned it earlier in the pod, like these guys all want minutes. But I think it was when we were talking about Haksabanovic. So like I think he'll definitely be playing. I think he'll contribute to the team, and it's just really I just don't know how or when is. I just can't imagine it. But the manager and the club's plans are, I think we're just so bulletproof. Like if anything was to happen, we've got an international break coming up, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
jinx anything or whatever, touch wood, but international breaks, sometimes things happen. The players don't come back the way we sent them out. So maybe this will be the opportunity where you see some stuff quite obviously, like, oh, this guy's majorly jet lagged and this guy's injured, or now these guys can come in and the level doesn't drop.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't know if Japan's announced their team as of yet. I know O'Reilly won't be going away. Cal McGregor's obviously be Scotland. So we'll keep our eye on that. But yeah, that's it. It's a strange season, and again, you don't want to be going into this season with that World Cup there being blight. So it is important that you've got numbers and you've got options. And I'm sure whether it's Sunday that we maybe see Abelgard for 10, 15 minutes, we don't know. I think Livingston at the weekend would have actually been the perfect opportunity if you're, 2 or 3 up to bring him onto the game and see it out. But we'll see how that goes. Obviously, the later Sabliel Abada coming on, we spoke about how frustrated Jota looked. But 4 minutes, I know there was 5 minutes added on. It's not enough to affect a game, is it, for a player
Yeah.
of his kind of quality, if you will?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough there to give him, any kind of.
To really
Uh-huh.
speak about him at all. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
absolutely.
It was just kind of nothing at the end, unfortunately.
But looking at the overall game, Quinny, Celtic 14 shots, 8 of them
Wow.
on target. It was a game that you felt that we should have won it, and we do walk away feeling a bit disappointed. But it maybe shows I want to kind of finish with this, 'cause I think this is important. We spoke about Shakhtar being a very fun, good Ukrainian Premiership team, top team in our country. But Celtic showed last night, and even against Real Madrid for that 55 minutes, 50 minutes, that we can compete at this level, which was something I questioned, being out of the competition so long for 5 years, you know, we're at the point where even when we go up against these teams that you'd maybe say we were on par with a Benfica or a Shakhtar Donetsk, that we were miles behind them. But from what I've seen so far in 2 games, that maybe that'll change by match day 6. I've not seen anything to say that Celtic shouldn't be competing at this level of the Champions League. And from what Ange Postecoglou has done in the space of 18 months at Celtic, nearly, is absolutely ridiculous. It's not even 18 months, but is it 15 months or something?
Yeah, it's been incredible. About 14 months or
15
something like that,
months. Yeah,
probably. Yeah,
15
15.
months. Yeah, 15.
And I think, not to go overboard, but this is the Celtic that I've supported my whole life. This is the Celtic I've always, dreamed of seeing as having good seasons. And this is, we were doing it in podcasts, like in the build up to the season, like comparing ourselves against some other clubs that have made their European reputation with, let's just say, mild means, compared to the riches of the bigger teams in Europe. And very quickly, like our squad, you can paste it up against any other team that's a Champions League level club that is from a lower level domestic competition. And we are right up there with the best of them now all of a sudden. Whereas the last 10, 15 years, on the performances we've had, as well as like the on paper, like the actual talent that we've got. And it's, as much as any negatives that came out on last night or Real Madrid or even the rest of the group, it definitely can't be overlooked. Just we are very firmly, no one's even questioning it. We are very firmly like up levels on where we've been after doing 9 in a row, after doing invincible trebles and all the rest of it. This team, for me, like top to bottom, 23 players is as good as it's been.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is where you want to see Celtic compete, even though it might only be 6 games, maybe it might only be 10 games in a season. European football, you want to see us compete with the very top teams at the highest level, and for players to be challenged at that, because it's the reason why there's a lot of players probably at Celtic, as well as Ange Postecoglou, as that attraction of Champions League football, and it's where we want to see us. Just to close, Quinny, after the game, Ange Postecoglou said he couldn't have asked any more from his players. It was certainly a good performance if you're looking at it from that perspective, and he believes that the goals will come. I'm hopeful that they do come, but we probably need them to come really quickly, and hopefully going to be Leipzig is going to be that opportunity to do so.
Yeah, well, I think I think the Leipzig games like definitely offer us opportunities to score. Like Leipzig won't be a defensive block; they won't be really. They want a clean sheet, but they don't really plan on having one. That's their kind of philosophy. So we can definitely, if Shakhtar can score 4, we can score 4. We will get those opportunities in the game also, and it's just about taking the chances. And maybe St Mirren at the weekend will score 9, because I think we've got about 9 in the locker. We're due to cash in.
Yeah, let's briefly close with that. But we'll probably not be on until after we go to Paisley. Bit of kind of mixed bags at Mirren so far. He didn't start the season off great. Obviously they brought Stephen Robinson into towards the end there when Jim Goodwin went up to Aberdeen. It's 3 wins, 3 defeats for them. There's no real middle ground. I think back actually, and St Mirren's a great team to do it with. Do you remember the game after the League Cup final, just before Christmas? But it was 0-0. Celtic's team was absolutely decimated with COVID. Owen Moffat played in the game as the one that I kind of stand out memory of. Do you remember that one?
It doesn't jump to
0-0.
me.
It was a poor game. And I remember reading like Twitter after the game, and people were saying, "Oh, that's it. That's it, blown the chance. League's done. Blah 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 blah
Oh,
blah."
yeah, I remember that.
And this is only going to be the second time that we go to St Mirren. I think this will be a tough game, but again, there's no reason why we've went to tougher places than this in the league so far. Thinking up about that performance up in Dingwall, obviously in the cup in Dingwall, we've been to Rugby Park. There's no reason why we can't go to this one and do the business. And Tannadice, which I know we won the game 9-0, but they're all difficult venues. But
Yeah.
hopefully, Shakhtar has a good platform to just get back to winning ways in the league. 5 point cushion at the top. At this point in time, just continue to, keep getting the points in the board in the league table.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that team. Mikey Johnson, Near Beaton, and Liam Scales and Bain all played also. So yeah, I definitely don't remember that match, but but I remember that kind of sentiment coming out afterwards for sure. And I think like the look on Jota's face, like when he came off, and even with some of the other guys, I put a tweet out. I think there was a point right at the end of the match we all got lost in Kyogo's eyes for about 2 minutes. The camera just pure panned onto him in stoppage time, and I don't know, I found it quite funny. But I think there's so much pent up like frustration in the team, wanting to do well, wanting to show their stuff on the pitch, that I think St Mirren are just going to show up at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they're going to be on the wrong end of it.
Yeah, that it might be one that Celtic might take out their anger a wee bit in St Mirren, which could be a difficult afternoon for the buddies, couldn't it?
Yeah, so they will be the Paisley Shakhtar. They will be Shakhtar Paisley.
Yeah. Well, you never know. In terms of the team, any major changes going out of the game? I think the back four picks itself with the goalkeeper. In terms of the midfield, I know we had a really good kind of 5 minute chat around that. Do you think that changes at all? Does Aaron Moy maybe start? Obviously, it's his old club. Do you maybe see him getting a start back in Paisley?
I'm really conflicted on what team the manager's going to pick, because I know the manager doesn't give a crap about international duty. Like, he's not going to look after the players and go, "Oh, you've got a big flight tomorrow, pal. I'm not going to play you." I don't think he does that. But equally, like for example, Bernabe, Rowson, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them came in. To be honest with you, midfield. So again, something's telling me Moyes due a start. But I like we were talking about. Don't want to go back over it all again. But I just don't know how any of that front midfield three gets dropped. But yeah, I don't know. Like, so I'm thinking we've got the international break coming up, and then we've got a rest period for the non-international players, which the manager will obviously be quite happy to receive. He's not going to do national teams any favours. So there's no need really to rest anyone for this game. We did have last weekend off as well. Is it maybe the same team that rocks out? But again, I'm thinking Bernabe could use a minute or two. Rowson, like, is maybe just start as well.
I thought Taylor was excellent last night, so I'm keeping
He was.
Greg in, and he probably won't get minutes with Scotland, even though he actually probably deserves it. I think, one thing that Ange hasn't really did, Quinny, is change the defence. So to me, that stays. I maybe see Aaron Moy coming in, and he might just fancy tinkering about with the forward line, although Haksabanovic probably needs minutes a football, but I would much prefer if he was over on that right hand side, because Jota just is far more effective there. But again, Abada, Maeda, you've got lots of good options in there to pick from, and we'll probably see them all featured at one point in the game.
And do you reckon Kyogo or Giakoumakis will play?
I think Kyogo will play again. I think it's just important to the way that we play football. We like to play through the middle a lot, and it was absolutely flying. But was it 6 goals in 4 games or something in August? So yeah, Kyogo for me. If I think both are fit, it's always Kyogo for me. So that's what I'm going. Just a wee shout out to all our listeners. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. We're giving away prizes every month. So please do subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be back. Myself, Quinny, hopefully in the next few weeks. We'll be back next week, and in the next few weeks maybe with some special guests. So thanks to all our